Hi.
Are you staying cool?
I'm sorry.
Are you staying cool?
Yeah, we have AC, thankfully.
Me too. Yeah. Downstairs anyway. Upstairs not so cool.
Okay, it's 7 o'clock, so I will call the meeting to order. Good evening, everybody. This is Tiger Planning Commission public meeting. Today is August 2nd, 2021. Doreen, may we have a roll call, please?
Yes. President Hu,
Here.
Vice President Jackson,
Present.
Commissioner Brooke,
Here.
Alternate Commissioner Dick,
Here.
Alternate Commissioner Miranda,
Present.
Commissioner Quinones, Commissioner Roberts,
Here.
Commissioner Shook,
Here.
thank you, Commissioner K7,
Here.
Commissioner Watson,
Here.
and Commissioner Whitehurst.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank
Good.
you. So looks like Commissioner Quinone is the only one not here. So
I just joined.
Oh.
Hi.
hi. Hi,
Okay.
hi, glad you joined us.
you.
So we'll have a full house today. Thank you. All right. So next item on the agenda is communications. Commissioner, since our last meeting, have you attended any meetings or have anything to report back? I see no hands, so okay, nothing. Let's move on to consideration of minutes. So Doreen passed around the draft minutes for our June 21st meeting last week. Do you have any questions, corrections, deletions, additions? I see no hands raising, so I declare the meeting approved. Great. That's easy. So let's move on to the main item of tonight's meeting, the public hearing. I'm going to open the public hearing. So today's hearing is Riverside as Shoals, Meadow, and it's PRD 2021-1, SUB 2021-1, and TUP 2021-2. So the applicant is proposing a 79-lot subdivision plan development on 9.7 acres. The development proposes a mix of single-family residential units made up of 24 row homes lots, 43 standard lots, 8 medium lots, and 4 small lots. The request include a temporary use permit for a model home, which will be used as a temporary sales office, and early grade authorization. So before I move any further, just want to announce that to the public that if you want to call in to provide your testimony, the call-in number is 503-966-4101. Again, if you want to call in to provide your testimony, the number to call is 503-966-4101. All right. So I have some required statement that I need to read for our hearing. The applicable approval criteria are those listed on page 2 of the staff's report, which is available at the Tiger Public Meeting website. Testimony and evidence must be directed toward the applicable approval criteria listed on page 2 of the staff report or other criteria in the comprehensive plan or land use regulation that are believed to apply to the decision. And finally, failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue, preclude appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. And here are some procedure items. Commissioners, do you wish to declare a conflict of interest or wish to abstain from this case? Commissioner Shook, please go ahead.
Good evening, President Hu. I wish to abstain. Riverside Homes, the applicant, is my employer. So I think it would be appropriate for me to sit out of the discussion and the vote tonight.
Thank you. So Commissioner Shook will recuse himself from the consideration and deliberation of the case. Any other commissioner wish to declare a conflict of interest or abstain from this case? I see none. Does anyone in the audience wish to challenge any member of the Planning Commission for bias or conflict of interest? Again, if you want to call in, the number is 503-966-4101. So if somebody wants to speak up, Keelan will let me know. Okay, next item, ex-parte contacts. Commissioner, do you wish to report any ex-parte contacts about this case? So have you discussed this case with anyone other than the staff member? I see none. Commissioner, have you visited the site of the proposal? If you have, please raise your virtual hand and I will read out loud. Please keep your hands. Okay, so I see Commissioner Jackson, Commissioner Quinones, Commissioner Watson, Alternate Commissioner Dick, Commissioner Book. Anybody else? And myself as well. So Commissioner Hu. Okay, so please lower your virtual hand. Thank you. Does anybody in the audience wish to challenge the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission? Okay, I don't hear anything from Keelan. All right, so I want to give you a description of the hearing process. So first, the staff will give their staff report. Then the applicant will make their presentation. After that, we will take public testimony. So again, if you want to call in, the number is 503-966-4101. Okay, so I would like to introduce staff member. It will be Associate Planner Monica Belladou. Good evening, Monica.
Oh. All right, just opening. Okay, good evening, President Hu. Sorry for the slight delay. My name is Monica Belladou. I'm Associate Planner with the City of Tigard. And as you said, the item before you tonight, number 5, is the Riverside at Shoals Meadow plan development. So here is one of our maps from our River Terrace website showing all the subdivisions that have taken place in River Terrace thus far. So as you can see, just south of 2 on this map, which is West River Terrace, is the site of this proposed project. And it's a continuation of kind of the development on that west side of Roy Rogers. So as you had mentioned, just a quick project summary is the 79 lot subdivision, and it's going to be broken up a little differently with some row homes and some different medium and small lots to kind of address the housing needs. They've integrated some of these different products. They've also included the temporary use permits to allow for the sales office, and then early grading authorization. And then kind of a summary, we have 0.62 acres of trails being proposed on that southern end there, the 1.13 acre of the regional stormwater facility and open space area, and that's on the total 9.7 acre site. This is a kind of map of the connections, the street connections that are being proposed here. And as you can see, we do have some nice connections to the south and to the west there, making sure that we have future connections for future potential add-ons or future development in our region. So that was real important to us, and I just wanted to highlight that. But ultimately, the street and pathway connections that will support, that future urban growth to the south and west. And then we also have the pedestrian paths that are proposed that will be built along that southern border, kind of within the greenway there. And this is a concept and detailed plan development tonight. So as we can see, I have the concept map on the left-hand side, which shows kind of the breakup of the zoning, the R7 zone and the R25 as you get closer to Roy Rogers Road there. So that's kind of the general makeup of the site. And then the detailed plan, which I always like looking at the different colors so you can see the different types of homes and lots, and then the green areas that are being proposed. So that's the detailed plan on the right-hand side. So because this was a planned development, they had the ability to have a flexibility request, as all planned developments do. And within that request, they had a couple of requests for the row home, for the open space frontage and the main entrance. And those were to allow the block of these row homes, there's certain lots included in there, and to have their main entrance face to an open space track. And we have allowed this on other River Terrace developments as well. And then including some of those lots, the row home, the main entrance will not front on a street. We're allowing it in certain cases for this project to be at a 90-degree angle, so it will face kind of an interior courtyard. And then they've also requested a custom street section for street labeled A, and that's to remove the redundant sidewalk because they have trails on that section. And then we also have setbacks and some dimensional standards that are included in the decision that are standard requests that we have seen in previous River Terrace proposals. So before I move on to staff recommendation, we did have a couple emails that came in today, and I'd like to just highlight a few of those comments and also introduce staff from our engineering division, Jeremy Tamargo, to comment on a few of those. But I'd like to say one comment. I know there was a few questions about the tree grove located on site. And it is a significant tree grove that we identified kind of to the southwest portion of that site. And in our code, we do not have anything that requires the preservation of the significant tree grove. So we rely on a licensed arborist to give us detailed information and recommendation on the health and the the preservation ability of those trees. So the applicant did have a licensed arborist go out to the site and assess all those trees, and it was determined that it was an old Christmas tree grove, a monoculture. The trees were planted very close together, so it was recommended to staff that it was not going to be of benefit to preserve that tree stand. So therefore, staff moved forward with allowing the development and a better urban forestry plan to be presented and proposed. So that was one of the conclusions. I know there was a question on that, but I'll have Jeremy speak quickly to some of the other comments that were raised today, if Jeremy is available.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Jeremy Tamargo, engineer with the city. So we did receive a number of questions and comments. So one of which I know was forwarded out to the Planning Commission group regarding a temporary construction access off of Roy Rogers. Couple things to point out with that. One of which is that Roy Rogers Road is Washington County jurisdiction, so it's their right of way as the permitting authority. So we reached out to the county in terms of if they would support a temporary construction access off of Roy Rogers Road, and they indicated that they would not because of the existing access about 250 feet to the north off Jean Louis. That's a signalized intersection, so the county indicated that that would be the preferred route for construction access for the site. In terms of mitigating concerns regarding construction access through the neighborhood, per the condition of approval number 11 in the staff report, the applicant does have to submit a construction vehicle access and staging plan prior to issuance of our public facilities improvement permit. So the city would recommend routing all of that construction vehicle traffic the shortest route possible. So that would be through the safety of the signalized intersection at Jean Louis, down the first route there, 171st. So that would minimize potential disruptions to the existing neighborhood there. There were a couple other engineering related questions that are typically handled at PFI review, Public Facilities Improvements Review, rather than land use, but I'll briefly speak to a few of those questions. So there are some questions about stormwater runoff as well as erosion control during construction, and so all of that is handled during the engineering review. So the applicant will have to submit a grading plan, erosion control plan for review and approval by the city as well as Clean Water Services prior to sign off. The applicant will also have to obtain a 1200C erosion control permit since their site is greater than 5 acres. And that basically is additional measures just to make sure that your stormwater runoff is controlled. And then there was a question about legal construction hours and who do we notify of noise complaints. So per the Tigard Municipal Code, the construction activities are exempt from the sound limits between the hours of 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. That's 7 days a week. Since we haven't actually issued any construction permits yet, there's no city construction inspector assigned to this project. But in the interim, until that time, you can reach out to me, Jeremy T at tigardor.gov or 971-713-0281 with any specific questions you may have about the project from the engineering side. I think that was the rundown. Anything I'm missing there, Monica?
No, that was great, Jeremy. Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
All right, so I'll go back to our staff recommendation to wrap the presentation up and let the applicant have their say. So the staff recommendation, we ultimately support the project or we recommend approval to the Planning Commission, and that you take 2 actions today. So the first is going to be in favor of the concept plan map. So that's number 1. And then second action is going to be in favor of the detailed plan, and then all the subsequent, the subdivision, the temporary use permit, and the early grading authorization. So that concludes staff's presentation for tonight, and we're available to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you, Jeremy. And thank you for the clarification that we need to make 2 motions. Commissioners, before I move on to the applicant, do you have any questions for Monica or Jeremy or the staff? Please raise your hand. Commissioner Brooke, please go ahead.
Hi, I would love it if Jeremy could just show us a map of, because I think I was following along when he was talking about where the access will be, but I would love to just clarify that.
Jeremy, you're on mute. There we go.
Monica, do you have a map available? It'll just take me a minute, if not, to log on. But anyway, just talking through it, the access to the site would be at the signalized intersection at Jean Louis, and then it would be the first local street there, 171st Avenue, that provides access to the proposed development site.
And if the public wants a copy of their access and parking plan, they can contact you for.
Correct. Yep. So that hasn't been submitted yet. So we're still at land use and that PFI permit. But yes, they could reach out to me if someone wanted a copy of the access plan.
Thank you. I see.
I've got a map.
Okay, go ahead, Tom.
President Hu, this is for the audience. This is Tom Mcguire. I'm the Assistant Community Development Director, and I had my map up looking at it. And so this, if you can see my cursor, this is the site. Current condition here is Roy Rogers Road, and the access is at this light. There's a traffic light signal right here. So access ingress for construction would be this way. This is Jean Louis right here.
Yep. Thanks, Tom. I'm not great at talking and multitasking at the same time, but yes, it would be at Jean Louis, and then the first local street there running north-south, 171st, would be the access point that would be permitted for construction access.
Thank you. All right, Commissioner Jackson, please go ahead.
Yeah, on page 63 of the staff report, it talks a little bit about the potential of requiring dedication or reservation of the open space and trail corridor section of the property. And could you just go over a little bit on what the differences are between that and just doing the public access easement, and like if there are any long-term flexibilities that one option gives us over another?
Jeremy, were you going to speak to that issue?
Sure.
Just what type of easement we require, if I understand the question correctly?
Yeah, so the difference typically for trails and different things, the city requires a pedestrian easement over the facility. So typically it would be required that the HOA would be responsible for the maintenance and upkeep of the specific area, but there's an easement over it to allow public access for utilization of the facility. as opposed to if it was dedicated to the city, then it becomes the city, the park staff essentially that would be the ones maintaining the trail.
So I know this is long-term and currently it's outside the UGB, but have there been any talks or interest within the city of either expanding that open space when area to the south develops, or turning that into a park? My understanding is that the park to the north in the existing River Terrace neighborhood was already intended to serve this area once it developed, but I'm just thinking like very long term, is there any benefit to requiring a dedication if that open space were to expand in the future as part of further development?
There are wetlands to the south, so I think there is some potential. I know Tom would be able to speak to kind of the planning aspect for future planning of River Terrace expansions to the south there. Jeremy, were you about to speak? I cut you off.
Oh no, Tom can go first. That's no problem.
So yeah, the area to the south is part of our urban reserve, and you've seen that a couple of months ago as part of the concept planning for the River Terrace 2.0. We're at the concept planning stage, so all we're doing now is big circles where we identify how much acreage we need and generally where that acreage needs to be. But there's a stream corridor, a pretty substantial stream corridor just to the south there. Some reasonably high quality forests nearby. It's hard to say exactly if that corner or that area adjacent would be proposed as a park. And as you know, these River Terrace expansions should, the Metro approve our application to bring that area into the urban growth boundary. We get the annexations, we get the community plan finished. We might have a better idea during the community plan, but sometimes even then it's fairly general because we can't really put a green dot on somebody's property, and usually until we purchase it or have control over that. So most likely scenario is however many years down the road that is when that actually comes into the UGB and then would someday develop, it would be up to the developer to propose that.
So hopefully a quick follow-up. So if we don't require it to be dedicated now, does that completely tie our hands for the future if we did want to turn that into a neighborhood or part of a neighborhood park later, or we would just approach the HOA at that point?
Well, I think there would be two options. Theoretically, we could build a neighborhood park next to it, and then it would sort of de facto act that way. It's already public open space with the tract over it, so could go that way. Or we don't have any limits on once things like that are built. That if they wanted to arrange something, or the city wanted to arrange something with the HOA, yes, we could purchase it from them.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Commissioner Miranda, please go ahead.
Thank you. My questions are about the site and if we have any protocols or rules about clearing the site and the, in grading and removing the trees. Is there a requirement to not put them in a landfill or recycle them or harvest them? And then secondarily, if in demolishing of the buildings, do we have any requirements around that about hazardous stuff or reusing any of those items just from a waste stream perspective? And then my third question is, does the commission have any input on HOA rules in these types of, in developing the HOA rules for the development. Can we give input, or is that something outside of our purview? Thank you.
Okay, so I'm happy to answer. This is Tom again. I'm happy to answer all of those questions, actually. The first one, the only regulation the city would have over the tree cutting and the site clearing would be the grading, which really it doesn't cover the trees, but would be the erosion control. We would just look at the site as a whole for any erosion control issues, as far as taking the trees down, where they go, how the wood is used. City of Tigard has no regulations in the development code or in the municipal code that I'm aware of that governs that. That's usually the county, if anything. I would imagine they're probably taking them to a mill somewhere. The ones that have the most value, I'm not sure what, and then they probably grind up the branches and so forth. I don't know that for sure, but oftentimes they will use a lot of the branches that they'll grind up and put around on the site to use that for erosion control, to keep dust and mud and things like that down. It might be something you could ask the applicant. They may have some thoughts about what they're doing with that. And then similar to that, we don't have any regulations that I'm aware of as far as the demolition. They have to get a demolition permit through our building department. The building department would look for things like, are there hazardous substances that were on site? Is it a known hazardous substance site, or gray field or something? They would look at how the house is taken down, and but we don't, again, the City of Tigard does not have any regulations about requiring recycling of materials, older materials, or anything like that. And then let's see, your final question was about, sorry, I forgot.
HOA.
Oh, HOA, yes, sorry. And that's, no, HOAs are, their agreements are all private amongst the private citizens who buy properties there and the developers. So the city has no, the same as the HOA agreements can't impact city regulations. The city doesn't have any input into the HOA regulations. They're really two separate worlds.
Thank you.
What's following up on Commissioner Jackson and Commissioner Miranda's question? I know that some HOA has CC&Rs that prohibit public sale of open space. So if that's the case, that might hamper the city's ability to obtain open space later on. So that might be something that Commissioner Jackson want to think about it more, and if he want to have further discussion or work on a condition. I don't know if that's possible. But my question is that for the modification to the setback requirement, one of the two public benefits cited was this public safety because of this eye on the street concept. So my question, maybe the applicant can answer this if they have the answer, is what kind of evidence do they have that the closer, the shorter the setback is, the safer the community is going to be? It just seems it's a conclusion without any citation for support. Like if it's closer to the street, the safer it is, then why do we have setback at all, right? So do you have any evidence, or do you know any supporting evidence, Monica, that this eye on the street concept will improve public safety?
We have approved similar setback reductions in River Terrace, with the conclusion of, the benefit of bringing the public closer to the street, maybe not necessarily with the conclusion of eyes on the street, but it's getting them closer, more involvement, kind of walkability, that kind of aspect where we're pulling the homes closer, giving.
I can't have you here. Okay, come sit.
Giving that kind of infusion into the street. So we've made that kind of consistent in River Terrace, that we've allowed that setback reduction there. But ultimately, any of the planned developments have that ability to pull closer with the trade-offs. So we feel that there's adequate trade-offs that support this kind of reduction in bringing the homes closer to the street there.
Yeah, I understand the need to maybe have shorter setback to put more units in there, but I'm just naturally skeptical of a conclusion if I don't see supporting evidence. So that's why I have this question. So, but doesn't mean that I'm against it. So anyway, Commissioner, do we have any more questions for staff before we move on to the applicant? We will have a chance to ask staff question again before we go into deliberation. Okay, I see none. So thank you, Monica, for now. All right. So at this time, I ask the applicant to present your case. Please state your name and title, and please limit your presentation to 20 minutes. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Stacy Connery with Pacific Community Design, 12564 Southwest Main Street in Tigard, 97223. And I have a PowerPoint, if I can share that now. Okay, can you all see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I wanted to start by thanking Monica and staff for their thorough staff report. Monica hit a lot of points that I'll just go ahead and skip through with this PowerPoint. Our first slide here is showing an aerial view of the site location and its relationship to Roy Rogers Road on the east side of the property and the existing West River Terrace subdivision on the north side of the property, with Sabrina Avenue stepping into the site. Sabrina's a neighborhood route. Jean Louise is the collector coming into this neighborhood, and then there's multiple local street connections stepping to the north side of our site. Let's see, just for context, I wanted to quickly run through the River Terrace community plans to show how they relate to development of this site. Our site is right on the edge of the current UGB and contains an R7 zone for the majority of the site, as well as an R25 zone on the eastern portion of the site. The site is not mapped as containing wetlands or riparian areas. As Monica mentioned, it does include some mapping for a significant tree grove, which our arborist did investigate and found the condition of these trees to not be worthy of preserving, and actually to be kind of a hindrance to try to protect them in small groups, because they are growing so closely together and such a monoculture that they don't lend themselves to preservation. This map shows the relationship of the site to community parks within the River Terrace community plan. There is a future community park planned on the opposite side of Roy Rogers Road, a little bit to the northeast of the site. And this map shows neighborhood park service areas. There is a neighborhood park that exists to the north of this project, which portions of this site are within the service area of that neighborhood park. There are also neighborhood parks on the opposite side of Roy Rogers Road, which also hit our site in terms of service areas, which are a quarter-mile walking distance. The trails map for the community plan does not identify trails on our property. In terms of transportation improvements, the community plan does call for extension of the neighborhood route through the site to provide for future connection to the south, and notes that Jean Louise would be extended further to the west with future development, UGB expansions over there. And now we'll step through our site plan and the implementation of community plan elements. Given that Roy Rogers Road is an arterial, we are not allowed by the county to directly connect to Roy Rogers Road. So access to this project will come through Jean Louise, down Sabrina, or through local streets that are being extended into the site. Two of the local streets will be extended further to the southern property line for future development to the south, as well as Sabrina extending in the future to the south. Our east-west road is also providing for future extension to the west. We have row homes on the eastern portion of the site and a variety of homes that are detached single family throughout the majority of the project. We do have a trail corridor running along the southern boundary of the site, which will also provide a pathway around the stormwater facility in the southwestern corner of the site. The stormwater facility will be planted and designed to provide a natural amenity that creates some interest throughout the season as the water levels change. Just a few highlights. This project is implementing the planned units and densities per the River Terrace Community Plan. It is extending existing streets from West River Terrace and providing for future street connections to the south and to the west. We're adding a trail or linear park corridor along the southern boundary of the project. This trail and linear park corridor is currently planned to be owned and maintained by the HOA, and there is a plan to provide a public access easement so that that pathway system will be available to the public. The project also includes the stormwater facility, which will provide community amenities with its design and natural features. We wanted to share quickly the conceptual elevations for the homes that are proposed. We have a conceptual design of the row homes, which is showing a portion of the building. This is showing an end unit and one of the interior row home units. And this interior row home unit is one of the modifications that was requested to have the front door of this row home at a 90-degree angle to the street. The front door will open onto a porch area here, and there's a window in the porch area will be facing the street. I'll just quickly scroll through the detached single-family homes that are proposed. And let's see. I would be happy to answer any questions. We do have our team here tonight, including our project engineers, a representative from Riverside Homes, our transportation engineer, and our arborist, and we're all happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Stacy. Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant? Please raise your hand. Commissioner K7, please go ahead.
Hi, Stacy. Thank you for your presentation. I had one clarifying question. So the access comes from John Lewis to 171st, for example. Is 171st going to be wide enough for some of the vehicles to travel there? Because at the intersection, there are already existing homes, am I correct, on 171st? So is that going to be enough to bring in some of the big trucks, etc., into the development the way it is set up right now?
Okay, you're talking about construction access?
Correct.
Okay, let's see. Patrick, could you possibly take that question?
Sure, I can take that question. My name is Patrick Espinosa. I'm the engineering manager at Pacific Community Design, address 12564 Southwest Main Street, Tigard, Oregon, 97223. In regards to the construction access, all of those streets and the turning movements, even in those local roads, are designed to allow fire trucks to navigate. So there should be sufficient turning movements for the majority of the vehicles to utilize that local road, 171st, to access the site. You know, with maybe some larger vehicles at the very beginning of construction, we may need to work with the city to allow some limited use to Sabrina to bring some equipment on, but 90% of the construction vehicles should be able to utilize that local road to access the site. Hopefully that answered your question.
Yes, you did. Well, one follow-on I had there was, will it still work if, you know, since there are already existing homes, if there are cars parked, et cetera, will they be impacted during the short periods of time when you're bringing some heavy equipment?
Yeah, and you're talking about parking specifically on 171st.
171st, also Jean Louis, I don't know if there will be parking there of existing homes.
Yeah, and I believe right now the current conditions of that section of John Louise in between Roy Rogers and 171st does not have any parking on the street right now because there is a dedicated left turn lane heading out to Roy Rogers. So there won't be any impacts to parking on that section. I imagine maybe there's some limited people utilizing that little stub of 171st for parking. Although it's a little inconvenient to front in and have to back out of there. But yeah, some of that parking may be temporarily impacted, but I think it's pretty limited since there is alley access to that 171st Street that kind of limits the use of that street for parking.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you. Commissioner Jackson, please go ahead.
I had two questions. One was in relation to where the proposed, well, what's currently called Southwest C Terrace, that alley connects with the existing alley behind the existing townhouses to the north. If I read it correctly, the access is limited to trash hauler service, and I was just curious if there's anything, if there like any sort of like physical obstacle or anything that enforces that restriction.
Stacy, is that something you want me to address?
Sure. Well, let me try and you can add on to it if I miss something. It is intended to just be used by garbage trucks, and the plan is to kind of, I think we were shrinking that down to the width that is necessary for the garbage trucks, and it would be signed that it's specifically for that. Did I hit it right?
Okay, thank you. And my other question is, so again, if I'm reading everything correctly, would be the most, except in one case, all of the largest homes on the property all border the open space area. And I was just curious if that was for any logistical or design reasons, or if that was just to maximize the value of those lots, or what the causes were for that.
Okay, Patrick, that might be a good one for you.
Sure. I think, it's twofold. I think there is some merit to corner lots having a little bit more value. And, frankly, we've got some setbacks requirements for driveways from the street intersection. So oftentimes we have to take advantage of those corner lots to provide wider lots to keep our driveway distance as far away from the intersection as possible. In particular on this site, just because of the geometrics with how we had to kind of wiggle the street up to the north as you head to the west, it did create some odd geometry on these lots that kind of fit that larger product a little bit better. So there was some intent definitely along the straight road. As you head west, some of it was just the geometrics of how the lots turned out as we shifted that road to the west and located it to allow for the stormwater facility.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, any more questions for the applicant? I have one quick question. On your drawing, concept drawing number 14, for Sabrina, there's a drawing saying it's a neighborhood route parking lot on both sides. But on that drawing, you also put bike lane on either side of the road. So I'm just curious, are the parking going to be, so are those bike lane permanent? Would there be an actual designated park lane? And if so, where are the car going to park? It seems like if you park the car there, you're going to block the bike lane. So where are the car going to park on Sabrina? Is my question. With the bike lane on both sides. So I don't know if you have access to your drawing.
Stacy, I can pull that up if you want to speak on that.
I'll probably need your help with that one. I have paper copies here, if that's helpful.
Well, here's the parking plan. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So I think the question is, we've got a circulation plan.
On the upper left, yeah.
Yeah, and to be honest, I believe this is an error on our plan. So we're identifying this neighborhood route to have parking on both sides. We're showing bike lanes, but we did anticipate, having parking on both sides of the road as shown in our parking plan. So that was just an error in our street section, a drafting error.
Okay, so there's no bike. There will not be a bike lane on either side.
There will not be bike lanes there, no.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you. All right, commissioners. Any more questions? I see none. So thank you, Stacy. Thank you, Patrick. We might have questions later, but thank you for now. All right. So it's time for the public testimonies. So if you want to call in to provide your testimony, the number to call again is 503-966-4101. And those who call in will be timed and limited to 3 minutes. Your time will begin after you clearly state your name and address. So, Keelan, do we have any callers?
No callers at this time.
Okay, so we do give them until 7:45. Okay, so I guess so before I close the public hearing, commissioners, here's your last chance to ask any question you want to the staff or applicant. Please speak up if you have any questions. All right, Commissioner Brooke, go ahead, please.
I'm sorry if this has already been addressed, but could the engineer from the city of Tigard explain why the driveway to the house that's on the applicant property? Sorry for the crying baby in the background. So one of the people that submitted the complaint about traffic, like using that intersection, existing intersection, suggested using the driveway of the house. So I'm curious, like if I were doing construction on my own property and it wasn't a huge development, I would have construction trucks just drive on my driveway. And I'm curious why that can't be the case in this situation. Why it would have to be turned into a permitted access.
Yeah, so Roy Rogers Road is what's classified as an arterial street, so it's a higher classification road, so you're expecting a lot of traffic on that type of road. So generally for road design of those types of higher functional classifications, you want to minimize your access points. So the less access points to the arterial, the safer the street. And so having an existing signalized intersection about 250 feet away from where that existing driveway is a safer alternative than allowing construction access directly onto Roy Rogers. It's different for a local street, you know, a lot less traffic, and so you allow more access points off of a local, essentially.
Great. And then my other question is for the people that submitted their concerns via email, are they, like, is somebody going to respond to them via email since they did not attend this hearing?
Yes, we will be responding back, and now that their emails are into the record, they will also be provided the notice, a final notice. Once the final decision is made, we will include them on our noticing, so they will have an opportunity. If they would like to appeal, they would be allowed within that 15-day appeal period.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Dick, please go ahead.
Hi, on your conceptual drawing of the new development, I noticed you had a lot of trees lining all the streets. Is that a reality? Are we actually going to see all those trees planted?
So yes, that's per our urban forestry plan. They submitted street trees. We have a street tree requirement roughly every 40 feet.
Nice.
River Terrace developments have done a very good job at complying with the urban forestry plans and planting excessively, so going up and above and beyond our standards for street trees and community trees.
That looked beautiful, and I'm really happy to see that. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, your last chance to ask questions. Okay, I see none, so I'm going to close the public hearing section and go into deliberation. All right, so now, Commissioner, now we're at deliberations. No public comments or questions allowed, but please feel free to discuss among ourselves on what you like about it, what your concerns are. You want any additional approval conditions, or you are happy with the way it is and ready to give the green light? We're making the final decision. Go ahead, Commissioner K7. What are your thoughts?
So when I was reviewing the package, my knee-jerk was, oh, we're removing a lot more trees than we are planting. That was one of my first knee-jerk reactions. And then Monica actually helped kind of, explain why we are removing, why it is okay to remove that many trees, etc. That was one slight concern I had, that, hey, are we, removing too many trees, too much greenery versus how much we are adding. That was one concern I had. So that is taken care of. I'm still a little concerned about the streets. With I'm all for affordable housing, all of that. But are we really paying attention to the width of the roads? Because people, these types of houses, people will have to park on those streets. And if they're doing it, do we still have the right amount of space for, fire trucks, garbage trucks, etc.? Are we paying? I mean, yeah, it meets the requirements of the city, etc. But are we doing the right thing from a common sense perspective? Do we need to readdress the width of the road, etc.? That's another lingering concern I have with all of these new developments that are coming up, right? So those are my 2 comments.
Thank you, Commissioner Dick.
So I too had the same question about the streets as K7. They seem really narrow where they're going to come through and then turn between the houses there onto the new development. And that seems like an enormous amount of traffic on a very, very small inlet to allow them to work there. And I have concerns about that as well. It seems like, why didn't they make that development first before they did the other one, I guess? Because you're going through one development to create another, and there's all that dust and dirt and trucks and noise, which will be unending for months probably. And so I too have concerns about the livability of the people who are in the existing neighborhood right now.
Thank you. Commissioner Quinones, do you have any thoughts on this?
It's a tough one because a long time ago, I used to live in an area that was next to an airport and a small jet airport. And we would get a lot of complaints. I used to work there. And we would get complaints about the jet engine and the fuel. And it's one of those where those individuals bought that house knowing that they were next to a large airport and jet engines, and that would be happening. So as much as I feel the pain and inconvenience, they also know that when they purchased that River Terrace home, that it was a very large construction, large scale project that was going to be occurring over several years. So yes, it is an inconvenience, but I think when they purchased that home, that was kind of there. So that's my thought.
Yeah. Thank you. Commissioner Jackson, your thoughts?
I think probably my concerns came through in the questions I asked, but so one was just the flexibility of whether we dedicate or don't dedicate the open space, and I think I'm fine not dedicating it. I'd be curious to hear if any other commissioners feel strongly about it, but even if it just ended up being a de facto part of another park that developed later to the south, I'm fine with that. Another kind of a small one that I don't think impacts my decision, but something that kind of jumped out at me when I was reading is that access to Southwest Sea Terrace, where it connects with that existing parking alley. I guarantee you people will use that parking alley to get to Sea Terrace. There's no way that they won't, in my mind. So that is a concern as far as the people living to the north of that alleyway. And then the other just being, I understand, especially on the leftmost 2 full blocks in the new development, why the biggest houses would be next to the open space. I'm maybe less convinced that on the next 2 blocks over, they couldn't have put them further into the block in the interest of equity. But again, not a full stop sticking point for me, but just something I kind of wish was a little different.
Thank you. I think the garbage access maybe the HOA will address it later on, just in case. Commissioner Brooke first, and then Commissioner Watson.
I just wanted to plus one to what Ali said. I had a lot of empathy for the people who submitted the concerns, because obviously nobody likes living by construction. It's a huge hassle. But they purchased those homes knowing that it was a huge development right next to open land. Duh, we're gonna, like, it just feels like, sorry, duh is a rude word to say, but like, it just seems like they knew what they were getting themselves into. So I do really appreciate the consideration that staff took in reaching out to the county and really seeing if there were any options of what they could do to reduce the inconvenience of having that construction traffic. But the due diligence was done, and like really what staff has recommended is the best and sounds like the only option. So I think staff has done a really good job, and not all of it is perfect, but I feel like it seems like a sound plan. So I generally support it.
Thank you. Commissioner Watson, your thoughts?
I'm just going to add that I understand the sentiment about basically having sort of the largest and lots close and across the street from the green area. But the way the density, or excuse me, the zoning is that the densest zone is along Roy Rogers, and so that kind of pushed the larger homes to the back, and then on top of it, the existing wooded areas that were worth preserving were also pushed to the back. And it seems as though elongating it along the southern border of the overall development seems like the best way to maximize the exposure to that greenway, versus having it sort of running north and south along the western border. So I see why they ended up there. And I also feel for everybody having to live through construction traffic, but yeah, it's quite evident that with the way the street configuration and everything, that the development was going to be expanding in this direction. So yeah, thank you, staff and applicant, and it seems reasonable to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Whitehurst, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you, staff, and thank you early on for addressing the considerations of the front door allowances with kind of the open space. But I believe that in the staff's report, they've addressed a lot of the concerns that we've heard, and done the due diligence with construction considerations. So I'm good.
Thank you. I think we haven't heard from Commissioner Roberts.
Off mute here. Hi. Yes. You hadn't heard from me. I'll take my hand down here. I'm generally in support. I understand the comments about, you knew what you were buying. They may not have, but generally that's the way it works. And I recall that when we built River Terrace, the complaints or the fears of construction dirt and dust, we haven't heard that mentioned this time, and the noise and so on and so forth. I guess it'll be done and it'll be over, and then life will be good again. This happens, and when you live on the edge, it continues to develop. So I'm in favor. I agree with the comments about the front door, and generally am supportive. And sorry it's going to be this way, but it will be better.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm generally supportive. I, like all the commissioners, are sympathetic about the construction traffic and noise for the existing neighbors. But unfortunately, as our staff mentioned, the county does not allow another entrance point from Roy Rogers. So it's literally above our pay grades. So the neighbor just have to endure traffic through Jean Louis. Like Commissioner Roberts stated, hopefully just not too long, and hopefully it will be done as soon as possible, so everything will look pretty again. And I do want to bring back the point of eye on the street concept. I haven't heard anybody who show me any evidence that's the case, but that doesn't mean I'm not supporting the setback adjustment. I think there are other public benefits, but I just generally don't like conclusions without any supporting evidence. So that's just my little gripe there. So sounds like most of us are in support of this project. So commissioners, we are making the final decision in this case. As Monica's pointed out, we need to make two motions. One is for the concept plan, and another one is for the detailed plan with the approval conditions and for the SUB and the TUP. So, Commissioner Roberts, you have your hands up. Does that mean you want to volunteer to make the motions?
I hadn't taken it down from the previous one, but I'd be happy to give it a shot. So I move for, and I think this is just basic approval, right?
Right. So we need two motions. One is the one just for concept plan so that should be easy. There's no approval condition, so just straight approval of the concept plan. The other one is for detailed plan with the approval condition as well as the SUB and the TUP.
Okay, I have the case number for those three up in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the case number for the concept plan in front of me.
So the concept plan is the same case number, the PRD. Is for
the PDR 2021-00001?
Yeah, that's for both the concept and the detail.
Okay, so I move for approval of application, the concept plan PDR 2021-00001 and adoption of the findings and conditions of approval contained in the staff report and based on the testimony received.
So commissioners, Commissioner Roberts have forwarded a motion to approve the concept plan. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Watson seconds. So so Commissioner, please take a minute to raise your virtual hands and please leave it up if you support the concept plan.
I think I'm up. Yes.
All right, I see. Wait. Okay, yeah, Commissioner Dick cannot vote, sorry. So I see all the commissioners' hands up except Commissioner Shook, he recused himself. So I see 8 hands. So all those in favor say aye.
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 All right, so it passed 8-0.
Ooh.
All right, so let's move on to the second motion, which is for the detailed plan as well as the subdivision and the temporary use permit.
Okay, so again, I move for approval of applications. The plan development review, PDR 2021-00001, the subdivision SUB 2021-00001, and the temporary use permit TUP 2021-00002, and adoption of the findings and conditions of approval contained in the staff report based on the testimony received.
All right, commissioners. Commissioner Robert has moved for approval of the detailed
There's
plan.
also a great early grading authorization. Sorry to interrupt. This is
Sure.
Staff Monica Billadu. There's also early grading authorization.
Thank you, Monica. So Commissioner
Okay.
Roberts.
That comes with the temporary use permit. Do I need to restate the entire thing? I can do it.
I
if you-
believe you can just add that as well.
Okay, where it says based on the testimony received and, oh, no, it goes before that. Let me just start over. Okay, I move for approval of the, is that okay?
Yeah, that would be good. Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, I move for approval of the applications, Plan Development Review, PDR 2021-00001, Subdivision, SUB 2021-00001, and Temporary Use Permit, TUP 2021-00002, and Early Grading Authorization, and adoption and findings and conditions of the findings and conditions of approval contained in the staff report based on the testimony received.
And that's for the plan development review, and that's for the detailed plan.
Yes.
Okay. All right, commissioners. Commissioner, thank you. Commissioner Roberts has very patiently forwarded a motion for approval of the detailed plan, as well as the subdivision temporary use permit, including the early grading plan with the adoption of the findings and condition approval contained in the staff report based on the testimony received. Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Watson seconded. So Commissioner, please take a few seconds and raise your virtual hands if you want to vote to approve. Ali, are you going to approve or? Yeah,
Sorry,
okay.
I thought I clicked on it.
No problem. All right, so those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, I see a hand. So again, you pass 8-0. So both motion passed. All right, I know I have some request statement to read, so please be patient. If you wish to appeal, please contact the Planning Division for explanation of appeal requirements. I think that's about it. Thank you, Monica. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, applicant. All right, let's move on to other business. I see Tom's ready to speak. Tom?
Good evening, Commissioners. I just two things. You've got the rolling calendar, so usually try to touch on what's coming up, and it looks like it's going to continue to be a pretty active season for the Planning Commission through the end of the year. So, I mean, that's good for all of us. It's good for the city, the economy, and we'll get to see each other a lot in the next coming months. And it is a mix of there's a few more planned developments probably coming our way. And then we have the two big legislative projects, the Tigard Maid project and the Washington Square Regional Center Plan District update. You will also be hearing about and voting on the TSP, the Transportation System Plan update. That's the legislative project that's amending our comprehensive plan. And those are the major ones. We will likely also have some smaller legislative changes for the code on behalf of housing. And, you know, in 2018, we passed missing middle housing regulations, and we were kind of ahead of the state with their House Bill 2001. But what happens is the state adopted that, and then they have to go through a rule making and process, and that takes a couple of years. So turns out they've made some very specific changes and come up with a model code, and it doesn't quite mesh exactly with what we had put together. So we have to make a few tweaks just to be completely in line with the state requirements. So you'll be hearing about that probably toward the end of, probably around November. we'll be ready to bring that to you. So that was the first thing I wanted to talk about. The second thing is I just wanted to give you, the commission, a chance to debrief on your joint meeting with the city council. It was, I thought we had from the commissioners, I was a little worried. It seemed like a little bit of a slow start, and also Commissioner Hu was not there. So it would if you want to add anything or provide some information to him about your thoughts on the joint meeting. That's the first joint meeting we've had remotely, and I think that contributed more than anything to if there's any awkwardness. But at first I wasn't sure that the commission was going to weigh in, but many of you did eventually weigh in and provide some comments, and I thought it was a really good meeting, and I know our staff person and myself got a lot out of that discussion. So I'll just open it up to commission members. If anyone wants to, any follow-up comments on that last meeting? Is that a hand, Melanie? Commissioner Brooke? I'm seeing 4 hands now.
I do have a question, Tom.
Okay.
Yeah, are we going to stay in the virtual format for the remainder of the year?
That's a good question. The city had been planning on opening up city offices and opening up the counters a week from today. That's not going to happen now. The leadership team, the directors, the city manager, they're all trying to follow state and county regulations as closely as possible. So you can't go too far wrong if you pay attention to what the state and the county are doing. And so things are, as you know, things are starting to uptick with cases again. So the city has decided to postpone the opening until September, early September. We had talked about, the city council had talked about going back to in-person meetings in September. I don't know how the discussion with the leadership team or the city manager and council members has gone, so I don't have anything to pass on to you about that. We were talking about following in their steps and maybe in September or possibly October starting to meet together, but it looks like that's probably all going to be delayed again. So sorry, I'm not very clear, but the situation as it's developing is pretty murky, pretty gray right now. So I think the city, and I commend the city, has been wanting to err on the side of caution with this. So I think it'll be a couple months before we, depending on how things go with the virus, before we will start to talk about meeting in person again. Does that help?
Yes, that's perfect. Thank you.
See, Commissioner Jackson, I'm just looking at the list I have here.
Sure, just by way of a follow-up comment on the joint meeting. So I agree that the beginning was a little on the awkward side, but in my experience, that joint meeting actually went better than most of the others I've attended.
Agreed.
Partly because it was a briefing, partly I think because we had something to read going into it, so we had a little bit of context, or more context than we usually do. The one thing that I kind of thought of after the fact is, at least for me, there's always a little bit of a culture shock going into a council meeting because they're a little more formal than we are. So I wish I had, and maybe would suggest to the others, that before we have joint meetings in the future, if maybe you at least attend or listen in on a council meeting before we have our joint meeting, maybe there's less culture shock.
Thanks. Yeah, I agree. Commissioner Roberts.
Yeah, really simply, there was a moment in the meeting when one of the council asked if we had seen these slides before or seen this case before? And I just answered, no, we hadn't. But what I'm wondering is there a form of politeness I needed to have observed, like a yes, Your Honor, no, Your Honor kind of thing, that kind of thing. I just didn't know if I was perceived as being too cavalier.
I think the council is generally kind of used to that with their non-regular guests, so that's part of remote hearings, I think. But generally, just for future, generally the council likes to see the hand feature go up, but you'll notice that particular night, even the hand feature was, I was with the technical difficulty sometime, the mayor couldn't even see the hand feature, so I think he was perfectly happy to have you chime in because he wasn't going to see you anyway.
Okay, thanks. But in the future, and also just within our group, we address each other as commissioner, not by, Darlene, for example.
Yes. I think the council appreciates that, yes. When we're doing joint meetings, we use a little bit more formal addressing of, Counselor, Counselor Smith, Counselor Jones, Commissioner Smith, Commissioner Jones, whatever, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And I did not do that. And it was like, oh, as soon as I started speaking, I realized the error, but I just made my comment, and that was that, because I've met with Mayor Snyder many times on various committees, and I felt embarrassed that I did not address the council properly. And so I've made a big note to self on that one, because that's an important thing. They deserve that type of respect when speaking. So yeah, I will fess up to my error when speaking that night, yes.
Well, that's two of us.
Hopefully next time we have a joint meeting, we'll be in person again, and it's much easier to remember that part of it when we're there in person, even at a workshop, which even for council meetings tends to be the more informal. So. Councilor Shaw is with us.
Yeah, thank you so much. I've actually been here all night and I really appreciate the comments. I just want to say, as a council liaison, I would also like to note that I could have done a better job, perhaps even in prepping. I think a lot of us are new, and so it was a great learning experience, but also there was a lot of technical difficulties. But I just want to thank you each for your service and look forward to the next time we can all meet, and hopefully in person, but for now it'll be by Zoom and potentially hybrid. So thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you. So, Commissioner, who did you watch the hearing afterwards?
Not yet. That's on my to-do list.
I would highly encourage it because it was being a joint meeting and a briefing. I think you would get a lot out of the briefing on the MADE project because, and rightly so, the team did a really good job with their presentation given the situation, and it's a pretty exciting project going forward. So.
Got it.
So that's all I have for tonight.
Okay. Commissioner, do you have any more questions? Any more thoughts, discussion? Commissioner Dick.
I had one more thing, and it goes back to the very beginning of the meeting when you asked if any of us had attended a meeting, and I was too late getting my mic and camera on. I did attend the audit committee on July 21st, and I just wanted to let you know that I had.
Thank you. Thank you for your many service. Okay. Anybody else? All right. So I think that's it for tonight. And thank you again. for your service. Commissioners, really appreciate your service, and staff members, thank you so much. Have a good night. Meeting's adjourned.
Good night.
Night.
Good night. Thank you.